1969-70, the 52nd year of operation of the National Hockey League. The season Bobby Orr so clearly dominated the game that at just 22 years of age, he was being hailed as one of the greatest players in NHL history. It was the 24th season for the great Gordie Howe, and the 42-year-old superstar finished 7th in the scoring race. Rookie goaltender Tony Esposito established a new league record of 15 shutouts, leading the Chicago Blackhawks to first place in the East Division. During the season, the NHL voted to add 2 new teams, Vancouver and Buffalo, to start play the following year. And as the regular schedule came down to the final weekend, there were still an actual 185 possible combinations of final standings. Such was the closeness of the race. And when the 1969-70 playoffs were over, the Boston Bruins had captured hockey's highest honor, the Stanley Cup. The battle for playoff berths went right down to the final day of the schedule in the East Division. The New York Rangers met Detroit that day, faced with the task of defeating the Red Wings and scoring at least 5 goals if they were to reach the 4th and final playoff position. And they did just that. The Rangers fired 65 shots at Detroit goalie Roger Crozier, 9 of them going in as they won that afternoon 9-5. Meanwhile, Montreal lost both games in a home-and-home series with Chicago on that final weekend, leaving Canadians tied for 4th place with New York. But the Rangers made the playoffs by scoring more goals. As a result, Montreal, the defending Stanley Cup champion, was eliminated from the playoffs for the first time in 22 years. In the West, St. Louis swept to first place over second-place Pittsburgh. These two teams clashed in the semifinals after the Blues had eliminated the Minnesota North Stars and the Penguins had defeated the Oakland Seals. Coach Red Kelly, in his first season with Pittsburgh, guided the Penguins to the playoffs for the first time in the club's history. His leadership earned him recognition as the NHL's Coach of the Year. But St. Louis Blues were too much for Kelly's Penguins in the semifinal series, beating them 4-2 as they advanced to the Stanley Cup final. In the East, that old Boston-New York rivalry boiled over in a rough quarterfinal series. As usual, Bobby Orr was superb, dominating the Rangers with his speed, uncanny puck control, and his knack of anticipating plays before they happened. The Bruins won the series in 6 games. Now Boston faced Chicago, who had eliminated Detroit in the other East quarterfinal series. The Bruins and Blackhawks had finished in a first-place tie in the East, but first place officially went to Chicago because the Hawks had recorded more wins. This series matched the All-Star Esposito brothers in a head-on clash. Boston's All-Star center Phil against his younger brother Tony, Rookie of the Year and the league's outstanding goalie. The veteran Phil won the battle, blasting 3 goals past Tony in the opening game, and the Bruins never looked back, sweeping Chicago aside in 4 games. Orr displayed the form which won him NHL trophies as the leading scorer, most valuable player, and best defenseman, and when Chicago tried to triple-team him, he had the answer. Now everything was set for the Stanley Cup final between St. Louis and Boston. St. Louis was the site for the first 2 games, where the fans support their beloved Blues with an unmatched vocal affection. A veteran of over 100 Stanley Cup games, Jacques Pointe is in goal for St. Louis, and Jerry Chivers is in goal for Boston. All set for the opening face-off. It's a great first period with good scoring chances and big saves at both ends. With less than a minute left in the period, Johnny Busick streaks up the ice, pulls the puck back to his forehand, and drives a shot past Plante. Boston, leading 1-0, continued to press the attack on Plante at the start of the second period. Jim Roberts, faced with the almost impossible task of covering Orr, also tied the score in the second minute, converting Bill McCreary's pass. See what we mean about those St. Louis fans? Visiting coaches say they're worth a goal a game to the Blues. But misfortune was about to strike. Jacques Plante was playing sensationally in the Blues goal, calling upon all his skills and experience. But suddenly, he went down, the victim of a devastating shot on the face mask. In super slow motion, we see exactly what happened. Fred Stanfield's blistering low slap shot is tipped up by Esposito. Plante was knocked unconscious and out of the series. The impact was felt by the entire St. Louis team and its fans. Ernie Wakely takes over in the St. Louis goal. This was his first Stanley Cup final, and the Bruins, sensing that they were on the trail of a championship, wasted no time in putting Wakely to the test. Esposito gets the puck in the corner, centers to Johnny McKenzie, who slips it to Busick, who fires his second goal, giving Boston a 2-1 lead. Bruins made it 3-1 early in the third period, but the Blues weren't conceding anything. Chivers was kept busy in the Boston goal. The action was fast, and emotions ran high. The Blues could not solve Chivers, who thwarted their best efforts repeatedly. However, Chivers wasn't the only Bruin to come up with a big game. Busick cashed in Rick Smith's rebound for his third goal, making it 4-1. The Bruins added 2 more goals to make the final score 6-1. A record crowd of 17,506 exuberant Blues fans jammed the St. Louis arena for the second game. From the start, the Blues show they mean business. However, the Bruins weren't about to let up, and Stanfield shot them into a 1-0 lead. Wakely again is in goal for the Blues. Bruins added to their lead on this next play as Rick Smith draws the Blues defenders out of position before setting up Ed Westfall all alone on Wakely. The Blues continued to press, led by number 7, Red Berenson, but Chivers stood his ground. Towards the end of the period, Orr sets up Westfall, and the big number 18 scores his second goal of the period to give Boston a commanding 3-0 lead. In the second period, Stanfield feeds McKenzie a breakaway pass, but Wakely makes a big skate save. Larry Keenan is foiled by Orr and Chivers in this bid to get St. Louis on the scoreboard. Now, the master playmaker, Esposito, sets up Boston's fourth goal, waiting for the exact instant to give Derek Sanderson a perfectly timed pass, and Sanderson tips it in. floods, the Blues never stopped coming. Kerry Gray tipped in Noel Picard's shot from the point, and the period ended 4-1. Anderson misses a great opportunity early in the third, but scored his second goal before the period was a minute old to make it 5-1. 4 minutes later, St. Louis made it 5-2 when Frank St. Marseille blasted a Blues power play goal from the point. Old pro Johnny Busick scores the prettiest goal of the night on this rink-long rush. The game ends 6-2, and the Bruins take a 2-game advantage in the series. The loyal St. Louis fans, even in defeat, stand to cheer their favorite. The St. Louis Blues now board a United Airlines charter jet bound for Boston. Bill McCreary, Noel Picard, and Jim Roberts relax en route. In Boston Garden, the Bruins are in their predominantly black home ice uniforms for Game 3. Gary Chivers continues in goal for the Bruins. His excellent play makes him a candidate for the playoffs' Most Valuable Player award. Glenn Hall is in goal for the Blues as coach Scotty Bowman tries to get his team back on the winning track. The Blues open the scoring when Frank St. Marseille scores on Chivers from a seemingly impossible angle. From another view, we see how the puck got past Chivers. St. Marseille can't get a direct shot on goal, and number 20, Dallas Smith, accidentally knocks the puck into his own net. Now it was Boston's turn to test Glenn Hall. Just kept pouring it on, and Busick scored to tie the game. His 5th goal in 3 games. Before the period ended, McKenzie put Boston ahead 2-1. The second period opened with some hard-hitting action. Glenn Hall was nothing short of sensational, stopping 17 shots, many of them from point-blank range. And it's easy to see why he's one of the NHL's all-time great goaltenders. Chivers didn't allow a goal either, but he faced only 5 shots from the Blues, as this turned out to be the only scoreless period in the entire series. And every time Bobby Orr touched the puck, you sensed something great was going to happen, and it usually did. Early in the third period, Esposito starts a play that leads to Boston's 3rd goal. Billy Flager checks Esposito, but Kenny Hodge passes the puck ahead to Wayne Cashman, who beats Hall. Again and again, the Blues kept fighting back, but Chivers had their number. Meanwhile, Hall didn't get much rest at his end. The Bruins bombed 19 shots at him in the third period. Now Cashman scores his second goal of the game, and nobody could blame Glenn Hall. One save. Two saves. And finally a goal. The game ended 4-1. Glenn Hall had faced 46 shots, and the Bruins now held a 3-0 stranglehold on the series. Game 4. The Blues have their backs against the wall, and they come up with their finest effort of the series. Sanderson rushes up ice, but Bob Plager is waiting for him. Sanderson wasn't slowed down by that earlier check. Watch in slow motion a classic demonstration of the sweep check. Centering the puck back to defenseman Rick Smith, all in the same motion, and Smith drives it past Hall. The Bruins pour it on now, trying to increase their lead, but Hall and the Blues had other ideas. Bill McCurry gets a breakaway chance midway through the period, but Orr goes into overdrive, and Chivers comes out to glove the puck. Late in the period, Berenson evened things up with this goal. Assist going to Bob Plager and Tim Ecclestone, and that's the way the period ended. Gary Savarin shot the Blues into a 2-1 lead early in the second period. Moments later, Keenan missed a golden opportunity to add to that lead. The season's most gentlemanly player, Phil Goyette, gets manhandled by the Bruins' Ken Hodge. Bill Esposito, who spearheaded the Bruins' attempts to tie the score, had already amassed 26 points in these Stanley Cup playoffs for a new record, and he shows how important winning faceoffs can be. That made it 2-2 and was Espo's 13th playoff goal, setting another new record. The third period was only 19 seconds old when the Blues bounced back into the lead. Ad McDonald missed a chance, but Keenan drives a shot in off Chivers' faceman. Now it was up to the Bruins, and they started to really pressure Glenn Hall. His spectacular saves had Boston shooters mystified. It was left to Johnny Busick, who'd scored in all three previous games, to tie the game. The line of Busick, Stanfield, and McKenzie collaborated for 52 points in these playoffs, another new record. watch again in slow motion. McKenzie feeds a perfect setup, and Busick deftly tips it high over Hall's shoulder with only 6.5 minutes remaining in regulation time. Busick was having his finest hour, and he, along with Chivers and that fellow named Orr, were all being considered for the playoff's Most Valuable Player award. It was a hectic final 6 minutes of regulation time. Neither team could break the deadlock, and Orr, after getting 8 goals against New York and Chicago, still hadn't scored in these finals. Boston Garden was emotionally charged with an air of expectancy when the two teams returned for the sudden death overtime. Bowman sent out Red Berenson's line, and Boston coach Gэрri Sинден countered with Sanderson, Westfall, Wayne Carlton, Don Orey, and who else? Orr. Sanderson leads the attack into the blue zone, and it didn't seem to matter to Bobby Orr that it was overtime. He was still coming up ice in his daredevil, freewheeling style, and was about to cap his most amazing season with yet another wondrous accomplishment. Seconds into overtime, and it's all over. 9 months of hard work, more than 100 games, constant travel and practicing, the inevitable bumps and bruises, and it's all culminated in the Stanley Cup, the oldest professional sport trophy in North America. Now all that tension and emotional energy built up in the height of Stanley Cup battle is released as pandemonium engulfs the Bruins dressing room. Bobby Orr was named the most valuable player in the Stanley Cup playoffs, making him the first player ever to win 4 NHL trophies in one season. It had been 29 years since the Bruins won the Stanley Cup, and the people of Boston turned out 125,000 strong the next day for a parade and civic reception never before matched in Boston. Yes, Boston and the Bruins were truly on top of the world. Sha-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la, we're on top of the world. Sha-la-la-la-la-la-la-la, we're on top of the world. We got so much going for us. We know we have made the grade. Read about us in the papers. We have got it made. Sha-la-la-la-la-la-la-la, we're on top of the world. Sha-la-la-la-la-la-la-la, we're on top of the world. Our success is quite a story. Nothing left for us to do. We belong here in the big time.